You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball because the standard Yahoo trade deadline has passed. Sell highs and buy lows. I'm not doing those mini shows anymore. So what we're doing now, while the fantasy playoffs have either started or are ready to start, we are looking at categorical streaming. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed. So these are short-term players. Some of them are more longer-term guys, but guys who are generally available that you can add to boost one particular category. I'll highlight other stuff about these guys as we go through, but as you're looking to solidify categories, whether to get into the playoffs or to win your playoff matchup, getting these sort of numbers. It's not about, hey, which guy's better? Do I add big, tall center who blocks shots or small guard who gets assists? That means nothing at this time of the year. Absolute jack shit. Because for 10 teams, one guy could be better. 10 teams, another guy could be better. It's all about getting those categories in. So let's talk about those. And if you are looking for points over the rest of this week, this is not based on volume. This has got nothing to do with schedule and quality games and total playoff days, anything like this. When we're talking about categorical streaming in general, who can I add for one day to help boost me in that category? So, you always have to pay attention in terms of how the week looks, in terms of maximizing games played by getting 2-for-1s and back-to-backs and pseudo back-to-backs as we cover on the weekly preview show. But this is just literally per game averages, what we're looking at with these guys. Can they help me if they're playing? And when I'm looking at points, this guy should be rostered anyway, but he's not, and that is Kevin Porter Jr. of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think that Porter can be a guy that can give you, let's look at his last 4 games. 30 points, a rough 5-point game, then 16, 14, and 16. I think 15 point per game average for Porter for the rest of the season is realistic, at least realistic enough, and he helps you a little bit with his threes as well. He's getting decent enough assist numbers, 3.4 over the last seven games, but it's that scoring which he is really bringing that value for. It isn't easy to get an above average score off the waiver. In fact, it's almost impossible. Average scoring is about 16 points per game in standard fantasy leagues, but getting close to that, that's what Porter brings. His steal numbers have been pretty solid this season. We've seen some a bump in his assist numbers. He's blocking really strong numbers. 7 blocks over his last 7 games is pretty impressive too. He should be rostered regardless, but he isn't. Therefore, he can be available as a points streamer for you. I didn't want to double up on these guys too much, so when we're looking at threes, I think Svi Mykhailiuk is worth a look. Luke Kennard is out for another week. At least Derrick Rose is out multiple weeks. We don't know the status of the Shark, Bruce Brown, so Svi is going to get a bump in minutes. He has 7 triples over the last 2 games, and he's played 30 and 39 minutes in those 2 games. Now, the shooting percentages have been rough, but he has 6 assists and 3 steals in those 2 games. This is a guy that when we look at players, you say, look, someone like a Joe Harris is another option here as well. I've talked about him as a drop or using him as a 3-point specialist. He's probably, he is rostered in too many leagues, hence he qualified for my drop show. But Svi is available in lots of spots. Now, he is far from a must-roster player in 12-team leagues, but when you're looking for someone who can give you 2, 3, 4, 5 triples in a night, Mykhailiuk is going to have that short-term opportunity, so that could really work out for you. If we're looking to rebounding, Bismack Biyombo of the Charlotte Hornets, I think he's going to start for the rest of this week. I don't know. That's why this is all just short-term stuff. But he has started the last 3 games. He's pulled in 20 boards over the last 2 games. He's also blocked 8 shots in the last 3 games as well. Usually he's a high field goal percentage player. But if you are looking for rebounds, a guy like Biyombo could bring you 7 or 8 per game over this stretch, assuming he continues to start, which is what I am assuming the Charlotte Hornets are going to do. So Biyombo could be available for you to add, get a little bit of a boost in some other categories as well. But primarily when you're looking for boards, Biyombo is going to be that guy who can help you. For assists, this one's a harder one to find on the waiver wire. Most high assist guys are gone. That's why their value is at a premium. But Shabazz Napier is the starting point guard for the Washington Wizards, and I think he can help you there. 5 assists last game, 0 the one before that, but 5 in the previous start, and then 7 in the game that he came off the bench. He hasn't got, apart from that one weird game where he had 0 assists, he hasn't got under 4 assists since the 12th of February, so that is 7 games in a row, or 6 out of those 7 games with at least 4 assists. He's also got multiple steals in majority of those games as well. So when we're looking at someone who's got an opportunity to play minimum 25, maybe 30 minutes a night, get you 4 assists, maybe 7 assists, Napier has that value. He probably should be rostered in all 12-team leagues regardless. He isn't, so he is a stream available player that you can take a look at, especially to help you in that assists category. Next, we look at steals. The wave pool, De'Anthony Melton. He is starting at the moment. It hasn't been fantastic for him, but what he is still doing is getting us steals. 5 steals in the last 2 games. There was a little bit of a lean patch before that, but over the course of the season, his steal numbers have been pretty strong. 2.4 steals per 36 is a very, very high number. He averaged 2.5 steals per 36 last season as well, so expecting those sort of numbers is fine. Now, we hope he pushes to 28 or 29 minutes, but it just doesn't look like it's going to happen. But if you're looking for steals, a guy that can get you 1.5 to 2 steals a game, probably closer to 1.5, then Melton is available. He's a guy that we can take a look at if you're looking to stream that particular category. Melton, now there's other options you can use there, like Trevor Ariza might be available. He probably should be rostered regardless, but Melton, I think Melton probably should be rostered in 12s regardless, but he is available to be a 12-team league streamer for that steals category. If you're looking for blocks, Nerlens Noel is the man to go for here. He also helps in steals, a good combination, that steals and blocks combo. But in terms of blocks, he's a little bit up and down in the block numbers. There's no doubt about that. The last 4 games, 5-0-2-0. So 7 blocks in 4 games is good, but the zeros are annoying. And then prior to that, he had 3 games with no blocks. And then he had at least 1 block in 6 consecutive games. Actually, more than that in 10 consecutive games. So he can have some weird ups and downs, but he has still blocked shots at a high level, 1.5 per game in under 19 minutes per game. Per 36, that's 2.8 blocks per game. We know he's going to play those 18 to 20 minutes a night almost every night, get you a steal a game, get you 1.5 blocks per game. You could also look at someone like a Bismack Biyombo in that category, but Noel has a higher per minute block rate and probably a higher per game block rate than what Biyombo does as well. For your field goal percentage, and these percentage categories can be hard to influence, but Dwight Howard is available and he is shooting 73% over the course of this season. Now, if you add Howard, you have to be aware that he is just destroying your free throw percentage. 49 for the season. To be fair to him, in the last month, he's up to 53. That's still a destruction, but it's not as big of a destruction. But if you're looking solely to boost that field goal percentage category, Dwight can do it for you. Now, he also helps in blocks, averaging 1.3 per game. Rebounds, averaging almost 8 per game in under 20 minutes per game. But I'm just solely concentrating on the blocks here. On the field goal percentage, but he does help in those 3 categories that I mentioned. Free throw percentage, probably as hard a category to influence outside of the top 50 or so, compared with the points and assists there, the 3 hardest to influence outside of that. But with Josh Richardson dealing with a concussion, with Ben Simmons out, Alec Burks is likely to see an increase in his value. He is shooting 90% from the line this season on 4.3 attempts. Now, a lot of those big attempt numbers came as a member of the Golden State Warriors, but with those 2 guys out Simmons and Richardson out with the Sixers, a guy like Burks might get 2-3 free throw attempts per game. He barely misses. He's an unbelievable free throw shooter, and influencing that category can be quite tough to do, and I think there's a good opportunity. You're not going to find many guys who can swing that category for you. So in general, you're just hoping that everyone performs to their averages to win you that category, because it's hard to influence it outside of the waiver wire or outside of trades, which are generally dead now in leagues. But Burks is a guy, at least at the moment, with a slight uptick. He's actually shooting 93% over his last 22 games, which is a massive number on almost 5 attempts. That is a huge free throw influencer. And if he gets that bump in usage, which I think he has a chance of doing with Richardson and Simmons and Embiid all sidelined, that's going to translate into more free throw attempts, more free throw value, more scoring value, but more importantly, just influencing that free throw percentage category. Let's throw in a couple of other more advanced categories. I've gone through all the standard categories. Of course, if you want to get someone who's going to win you turnovers, add Kevin Durant, because he'll get 0 for the rest of the season. I guarantee you that. Let's look at guys two other categories which are pretty common add-ons: 3-point percentage and offensive rebounds. Now, with 3-point percentage, someone like Seth Curry's been unbelievable there, but he's probably rostered in most leagues. He's also dealing with a bit of a back injury. If you want to go a little bit deeper, I think Kelly Olynyk's someone to look at. 43% shooting over the course of the season. In the last 2 months, 44% from deep, 71% from three in his last 7 games. He is banging them in and banging them in with regularity. That is, again, a category that is volume-based in terms of being able to influence it. But if you can get him banging in 3 or attempting 3 a game and hitting them at 50%, that is a huge, huge number. And he is on an absolute roll at the moment. Olynyk, his last, he was 3 of 3 last game, 1 of 2 the game before that, 3 of 4 the game before that, 3 of 3 the game before that, 2 of 4 the game before that, 4 of 6 the game before that, 1 of 2 the game before that. So really strong number. So, passing all that out, he hasn't shot under 50% from 3 in 7 games. So probably he'll go 0 of 10 in this game coming up. But as a guy who's got a pretty good track record this season of shooting from deep, that value in the 3-point percentage category is Olynyk's to add. And then lastly, with the big avocado banged up, and this guy's also banged up as well, but if Tristan Thompson does come back, his ability to grab offensive rebounds can be really key. So far this season, he is averaging 4 offensive rebounds a game. That is a huge, huge number. I think we could expect, assuming he plays, 3 to 3.5 offensive boards per game. And again, that is a really, really key number in that category where it is pretty hard to get big numbers in offensive rebounds. Now again, Thompson's injured at the moment. You hope it's nothing too serious with that knee, but if he is back, then getting him in for those offensive rebounds could be something to do. I hope you like this new mini show topic looking at streaming options. Tomorrow, I am most likely going to do a short mailbag show as the mini show, and check out on Twitter for the questions over there, and also on my Instagram story. We'll get some questions in there too, at redrock_bball on Twitter and Locked On Fantasy Basketball on Instagram. Don't forget, subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Give it a thumbs up. Leave your abusive comments down below. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.